Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tech Talk with Sodhi. Not just another entrepreneurship show. Here, we don't just talk about innovations, we also talk about the journey, the sacrifices, and the untold stories behind the headlines. Well, today we are absolutely thrilled to have a leader in the ever-evolving world of blockchain, Aly Madhavji, a visionary entrepreneur and driving force behind Blockchain Founders Fund. Today, we will dive deep into the world of blockchain and emerging technologies with Aly, whose expertise and insights are reshaping the industries and fostering positive change. It's not just a conversation, it's a journey with Aly into the heart of innovation. Aly, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you so much for having me on Tech Talk. I'm glad to be here.
Of course, it's absolutely an honor to have you here, and we're really excited. I mean, for the listeners as well, we're very excited to delve into your journey and the immense knowledge that you possess about blockchain. So, if you don't mind, let's just jump right in and hear about what sparked your interest in this technology.
Absolutely. I think this technology really resonates with a certain type of person. And if you take my background and the environment that I grew up in, very quickly this technology started to make sense. And I'll sort of give you some context around this. So my parents are refugees from East Africa. And when you think about the instability that they went through in their lifetime, and this is, 1970s, some people that are listeners might be familiar with Idi Amin's reign in Uganda and the region. And, when the government can sort of just take everything from you, or your currency becomes more and more devalued very quickly, which we've seen many examples around the world, from Latin America to Sub-Saharan Africa to even technically Germany and other places in relatively modern day history. And so when you see these things very quickly and you understand how much the world is being left out of our current financial system, when I came across Bitcoin and then subsequently started to see the potential around blockchain and cryptocurrency, this is the first way in human history to really solve a lot of these challenges in a very substantial way and help, I think, some of these countries to even leapfrog the existing systems. When you start thinking about banking infrastructure and borrowing, lending, and savings products that are outside of the way we think about traditional banking. And some of our listeners here might know there's 1 billion people that are left out of the current financial system. And that's not, in my opinion, okay. That's not fine to just say, hey, we're going to cut out 1 billion people and they're just not good enough. That's not a good enough answer or resolution to the way this world should work. And that's where I think some of the power of this technology really transforms the way finance works. And then there's so many other aspects here on changing the way that even like ownership can work, the way that changing even our everyday lives. It's so many other things, from music and entertainment to even things like pet IDs and things like this, that are really, really cool that we're seeing changing the way the world works and the industry works.
It does resonate with a lot of people today as well, because so many people are actually integrating blockchain into their technologies. They do see the benefits of it as well. I think it's really interesting, because I do know that you come from a very traditional financial background and, a finance background, and then you took this entire turn towards blockchain. So I'm sure there's something that definitely piqued your interest, and we're really glad to have you in the space of blockchain and what you've already achieved. Let's kind of dial back into the early days. Okay, so I know that, you were the inaugural Dean's Fellow at INSEAD, and INSEAD is a prestigious business school. Could you tell us more about the projects you undertook during that time?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time. I mean, I've always sort of had a very strong affinity to the education space, and previously served on the board of governors of the University of Toronto, which is a multi-billion-dollar institution. And you may know, I published 3 books in the past in the education space. 2 of them made it on Amazon. It's always had this very strong affinity to the education space, and look at it even in a similar way to the way that I think about crypto in some ways, is it's really an equalizer of opportunity. If you think about education and higher education in particular, it allows people to really leapfrog out of their existing circumstances and really attain something that previously may not otherwise have been possible. From a more mass societal standpoint, not from necessarily a one-off individual entrepreneur standpoint. And crypto and blockchain also have that same potential to really change that financial landscape or change your opportunity set and trajectory. And so they think of them in actually in a fairly similar way. And so I actually created the role with Aly Madhavji, who was the dean at the time at INSEAD. And part of it was like, I love the school. I love the institution. I just graduated from the institution. I was already working on a startup at the same time in the Web3 space. And I was like, I want to bring a lot of this expertise and experience in the education space that I have to help you solve what I think are some major challenges at the institution. And so I was actually working on 76 simultaneous strategic projects for the dean, which sounds a little crazy. It was. And this was from everything from, creating new sets of awards to launching new campuses in San Francisco, which we launched a little satellite campus, setting up a new campus in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, and a number of other really, really cool strategic projects, reorgs, things like that within the institution. And I think this really helped to unlock a lot of growth. Another big focus was figuring out fundraising and advancement and making it much more effective. It's something that INSEAD had not sort of been, I think, at the same level of, say, American or other sort of Western peers. And I think the school, and I don't take credit for this, but there's been a lot of incredible people at the school focused on this that have really taken it to the next level and next level and next level. And the school is doing quite well on that front as well now. And so a lot of these really, really cool opportunities. And one of those other aspects there was to help the institution really settle and build out some expertise around the blockchain space and have and train professors on this space. And so what was really cool sort of subsequent to that is we actually wrote the first academic case study in the world on Binance with CZ, the founder of Binance. We did something similar with SoRare. And these are some of the biggest Web3 companies out there in their respective industries or sub-industries of the Web3 space, and allowing and helping students at every major academic institution in the world to be able to learn and kind of put themselves in the shoes of these CEOs and the challenges and tribulations that they had early on, and really be able to learn from that, I think is also going to help create the next generation of great leaders in business. And so These were the types of things that we were doing. A lot of really cool other case studies that we got published, a lot of really great professors sort of got involved in the space. And I think that's continuing to grow at INSEAD and other institutions. And so these case studies now, if you're going to Harvard or other major institutions, you can access these case studies. Professors are teaching them all around the world. So this is a really great piece, I think, of academic, even history in some ways, and learning about the Web3 industry.
Very interesting. And today that kind of gave birth to the whole Blockchain Founders Fund that you began. So I really want to firstly congratulate you and your team on winning the APAC Insider Singapore Business Awards 2024. And this is such a recent achievement, and it's just adding on to all the other accolades as well. So congratulations on that, honestly.
Thank you. It's exciting, obviously, for the team to be recognized, and we all put in a lot of hours, and we're looking at backing the best founders in the world. And of course, when you see this type of recognition, I think it helps the team to really feel motivated about the work being recognized regionally in Singapore and within APAC, but of course globally as well.
Of course, I completely agree. So when did you start with the Blockchain Founders Fund? What was your idea? What was your initial thought behind it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I can tell you it didn't start off purely as a fund. So, after exiting our last business, basically the idea behind it was, instead of running one startup, why not run and support two startups? And then instead of two, it became four. Instead of four, it became eight. And the real idea behind this was we all want to see ourselves as investors, right? We want to see ourselves as entrepreneurs that are really rolling up our sleeves, helping founders solve the most critical challenges. And any entrepreneurs listening will know, oftentimes you shy away from telling your investors certain things. You have certain challenges. You don't want to bring it up to them first. But our whole premise and ethos when we built Blockchain Founders Fund is we want to be the first place that a founder thinks of and comes to when they have a challenge, like a major challenge. When I was running my startup, there was times where I was like, okay, I need to figure out X, Y, and Z. And this might take me 25, 30 hours. And I would go ask my investors, and probably I'd go to bed, and 8 hours later I'd have an introduction to the CEO of one of the largest stock exchanges in the world. And I'd get on a call with them the next day or two. And that would already save me 25 hours of time by just picking the brain of someone that's the best in the world at what they do. This is sort of a very important aspect where an investor oftentimes can, if they are value add and they are able to really open up doors and solve some of these challenges for you or put you in the right direction, it can save you tremendous amounts of time. It can save you a lot of time from making mistakes that you might have made by putting you in touch with someone that's made that mistake, is an expert at that space, that can help give you insights to that customer persona or direction. So these are all very, very important things. And so that was the ethos of how Blockchain Founders Fund started. And we did quite well. And we ended up raising a $75 million fund about 2 years ago. We became regulated and licensed in Singapore, which is no easy feat. And it's been a fantastic journey since. We now have over 130 portfolio companies. So a lot of really, really great companies that we've backed in the space that are, building all sorts of incredible innovation. And so we're just thrilled to be part of the journey of so many incredible founders.
Right. That's great. I mean, having 130 companies in the portfolio, it's very impressive to see where you started off and where you've reached. And I think there's a perspective that comes with being an entrepreneur and then being an investor. So you do kind of understand the struggles and what are the challenges behind it. What were your biggest challenges before you got the funding, before you got these portfolio companies when you were starting out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a few, right? So one is, how do you sort of build and access the right types of companies that you want to work with, that you're passionate about? And I think that's a really important part, is we want to be passionate about our startups in the same way that our founders are. We want to be able to drive value to these startups and support our founders in that way. And so part of it was sort of getting access to things that we really like, that we wanted to be part of, that we want to spend our time. We look at this, if you think about time as a finite resource, we only want to be spending time with things we love and people we like, right? And so if it doesn't meet that, that's probably a very easy cut. And, life's too short to work on things that I think cause unnecessary stress for the wrong reasons. Like if it's solving interesting problems, great stress to have. If it's, people you don't want to be spending time with, it's just not worth it, right? So that was sort of the first part. The second part, I think, was ensuring and being able to sort of build that relationship with founders where they actually trust you to bring up problems that they don't necessarily want to bring up to other investors right away. Because part of our goal is we essentially want to be that first place that they bring up to. For example, there was a case in our portfolio where an employee left and stole some of the IP, and then, having to mediate that. Or if there's founder challenges and founders splitting up, which of course is fairly common in the startup world, having to mediate that and be sort of the one that's called on, touched upon to really come in and help resolve that situation, make sure it's amicable, make sure we can find a clear way forward that sort of benefits everyone and allows things to move forward. And, it's these types of things that it's not always the most fun work when you're dealing with that, but I think it's a level of trust that's important to build with your founders. And that's also going to go a long way. So these were some of the initial things. One of the things that, I identified pretty early on from my own startup and just seeing so many founders spend so much time fundraising was also, how do we compress this? I mean, as a founder, to be honest, I was fairly good, I would say, at the fundraising side, but I would say that it's not the most fun thing. So it's like, as a founder, you want to focus on your business. You want to scale your business. You want to go get customers. You want to sell your product or whatnot. But spending time on fundraising is essentially a distraction from the business. It's a necessary distraction, but as much as you can compress that and help to make that timeline more effective and not be fundraising for 9 months of the year, but maybe 8 weeks out of the year, is a lot better. So as much as we can help our founders do that, we want to be doing that. So that's also, I think, an important factor here where we can, once we are backing a really great founder, we can help them compress that entire timeline, put them in front of a lot of really great investors, and then have them go back to building great products and generating revenue, right?
Right. I agree to that. And there were two things that I kind of want to, again, echo back. And first thing is, of course, about trust. Because trust, yes, you want the founders to trust you and of course, it's a two-way street. So when it comes to trust, it comes from the qualities that you see in a founder. So what are the kind of qualities that you see in those founders that leads to their success and your success?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a number of things that we look at. We've probably got about 90 different factors we look at when we're evaluating a startup and the founders as part of that. But I think some of the bigger things is the meticulousness and passion for what they're doing, right? I mean, it's very easy for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of the founders who back are, I mean, they're incredibly smart people, and they could easily go back to a job at Google or Facebook or Amazon and make $500K a year or $1 million a year, or like things like this. I mean, some of our founders ran $1 billion plus divisions for some of these companies. And so you want to make sure that they have the passion and love what they're doing to make sure that they're in this for the long haul. Because it's never an easy road. There's always things you don't expect. There's always things that go wrong in startup land. There's all of these different challenges, and being able to navigate that, be able to bring people around their vision is important. I think being able to mobilize, have people really buy into it and bring smart people over, I think is important. We do look at coachability as very critical. We do want to make sure that founders are able to sift through and pick parts of different conversations that they want and bring those together and actually adapt to it. But it's a challenge, right? Like any founders listening to this call will know, you talk to 10 investors, you're going to get 10 different opinions and 10 different directions to go. And you talk to a bunch of others and it's going to advisors, going to be the same thing, right? And so you got to be very particular and not just swaying in the wind. It needs to be your vision, but you need to be able to tack on, what are some of the key insights? How do I sift through this? What are some of these people that are saying things? How does it make sense? Does it make sense? How do I validate it makes sense? And then how do I sort of put that together, or how do I discard it effectively? And I think this is a really important skill. Otherwise, I think you're just going to be sort of going in a lot of different directions very quickly. And that's not a good thing either. The flip side is also very bad though. So not being able to adapt to information and understand and be coachable is going to mean that you're not listening to your customers when they tell you things. You're not listening to investors that may have gone through the exact same situation and may be saving you 30, 40, 50 hours of a mistake. And you can't go and make every single one of these mistakes again. It's just not going to be fast enough. It's not going to get enough. So these are all different things. We do like, and probably the biggest factor that we as a VC and many other VCs use or sort of practice, maybe not in the same way, but the biggest thing that we're essentially looking for is progress over time. If you think about the formula, like how fast are you moving in as little time as possible? And that's a really important thing. And that doesn't necessarily mean like you're generating crazy amounts of revenue. But if we look at, say, the last 3 months, 6 months, and we say, how likely is it to get to where you are? Are you moving fast enough? Are you sort of doing a lot of the right things? Are you building up the right types of pipelines or customers? Maybe that's revenues. How effective is that? How easily could someone else do this? These types of things are very important questions to be thinking about and asking. And I think that helps to sort of give you an idea of, is this going to be the fastest moving startup in the world in this space, in this segment, this niche?
They have to kind of understand and learn pretty much everything, kind of be a jack of all trade and at least ace in one, and along with that, then a full-time activity or a job is to find funds as well. So I think that's where ecosystems like Blockchain Founders Fund come in. So they're so helpful and adding so much value for a lot of early stage founders and growth stage founders in this space. So coming back to, where do you see the future of blockchain technology unfolding, since you're right in the epicenter of the entire innovation that is happening in this space?
Absolutely. So, we see a lot of really interesting innovation happening in this space. We've gone through a few different cycles where I think in particular over these last few years since sort of, I would say the bear market started, like a couple of years ago, is a lot of just really incredible developers just kept building, right? And they didn't care that the markets were down and they stayed focused. A lot of the noise left the space. And I think this was actually a really good factor. We continue to back really exciting companies in this last bear market where a lot of investors left. To be honest, it was very slow from most of the industry from an investment perspective, but I would say it was actually moving very fast from a development perspective. And that was actually quite interesting. And in some ways, when you're in those bear markets, it's nicer because you just have a lot of these just incredible founders building cool things that people are using and starting to use, and it's sort of changing the industry. And it doesn't get all this hype and attention. And it sometimes it's kind of nice to just like be able to build as a founder. And it's less of these other distractions that you come across. But obviously it's nice in the bull market because a lot of it is getting recognized, all that hard work, et cetera. But some of the really, really cool things, I think one is the emergence of AI and how that plays a part in Web3. And I think there's a lot of really, really cool applications. We started investing at the intersection of AI, blockchain in 2019. And at the time, nobody in the world really had a thesis on AI and blockchain being combined. And when we told people at some of the companies we were backing, people thought we were crazy. They were like, it makes no sense. Why would you have AI and blockchain go together? How does that apply to gaming? We don't get it. And, people thought it was a little bit crazy. And we backed a company called Altered State Machine as an example. They ended up launching the first AI football league with FIFA and all sorts of other really, really cool things. And they've been doing really well. They got acquired about 6 or so months ago for a fairly large number. And so that was a nice exit for us. And so, we do think there's more to come though at the intersection of AI and blockchain, and just being able to, in many ways, one, optimize what's happening on blockchain, but two, blockchain is also a critical layer for AI. So if you think about, and this is where I think there's huge opportunities for founders. If you think about how AI works, the problem is going to be that it's this basically black box making decisions. And if you go to any government or any corporate and you're telling us that this is going to be reliable when you have to go get subpoenaed to Congress and tell the government, oh, it's a black box, we don't know how these decisions are being made, that's not going to fly. And so you're going to end up needing a blockchain layer that's basically tracking, documenting in an immutable way why decisions are being made and how did decisions come to being made and what information was actually relied upon to form different decisions. And I think this is actually going to be critical for enterprise and government adoption of AI in general, because it's such a critical aspect. Think about autonomous driving and decisions between life and death of two different people. This is all going to have to be documented and provable, not just being able to say it's a black box making decisions. We don't know how it happened. That's just never going to be good enough. There's a reason why Cruise just got banned in San Francisco after operating for a while. And these things it's not good enough, I think, to say AI did this and we don't really know how. So blockchain's got a really important sort of future, I think, in that intersection. Then I think there's a lot of other really, really cool things. So if you take more crypto native side, I think there's really interesting protocol layer one technologies that are sort of launching. So, we've been backing some of them. Shardium, for example, we recently backed. We think it is quite an interesting sort of new layer one. It's got among the most nodes and I think participation from the community that we've seen in a long time. Berachain is a proof of liquidity consensus mechanism that we recently backed as well. We think Berachain is going to be one of the biggest projects of the year to launch, and we're quite excited about that. We backed a number of projects building on Berachain now as well. So we're really excited about the entire ecosystem that's being built on Berachain. And then if you take even other aspects, we've got companies, for example, working on how do you decrease streaming costs in a decentralized manner, maybe be able to drop it 95%, which is pretty exciting, pretty interesting when you consider the vast amount of streaming costs. So Rilla, one of our companies, is working on that. When you look at liquid staking, restaking, this is a very hot topic right now on, what do you do with your crypto? How do you sort of make it more effective? This has been an interesting topic. Real world assets has been a big one. So real world assets is how do you fix some of the yield challenges in crypto? Because one of the problems is to get a 10% yield in crypto or in Web3, the risk you're taking is dramatically higher than if you were to try to do the same thing in the real world. So if you were to say get AA bonds, single A bonds, or, multifamily backed residential real estate instruments that yield 14, 15%, the risk on those is dramatically lower than what you're taking as terms of risk in the Web3 world. So being able to blend that, bring interesting yields on chain is sort of a really exciting opportunity that we're seeing. So there's a huge sort of movement around that and making it easy for crypto native. It also helps to blend and allow more access to capital in the real world for maybe more niche projects, et cetera. So I think that's an interesting aspect, but you're seeing BlackRock and many others, even make a big push on that front. So those are a few different areas. We're seeing a ton more happen on very just like finance heavy plays. So, anyone that follows crypto hears about these like options liquidations all the time. We just backed Emoja Money, which is basically a liquidation protection protocol. So we think that's very interesting. We're backing some interesting layer zero multi-chain plays that we think help to bridge all of these different blockchains, which can be fairly fragmented together. We think that's a very interesting opportunity, but there's a lot of really, really exciting stuff. I mean, we've got 25 open sub thesis right now where we think there's major problems in the Web3 space and opportunities for sort of new market leaders. So.
Right. That's very intriguing. I mean, that's very exciting to see like advancements that are happening in the space and what the future holds for it. So for these young entrepreneurs who are eager to enter this blockchain space, what a few valuable lessons you've learned throughout your career that could help them launch or work towards, starting their project or starting their business, reaching out to investors, a couple of things that they should keep in mind. You don't have to go through all of them, of course. We only have so much time, but, some of the top ones that you think are the most valuable lessons that you can share with everybody.
Yeah. So first off, you got to be really passionate about what you do. Starting a startup is no easy feat, and there's going to be a lot of down days and there's always going to be up days, and you got to be, I think, naturally optimistic, but, being very, very passionate about what you're doing. Then second, know and talk to a lot of customers when you're thinking about what you're working on. We usually recommend talking to at least 30 customers before you even launch, before you build. Go learn, go figure out their problems. If you can build it with them, use their input, it's just going to make your product better, faster, stronger, more applicable to be able to sell, more applicable to the market. So I think that's a very critical thing. When you're raising, I mean, definitely reach out to key people that can support your vision. I mean, different funds sort of approach things in different ways. Different angels can be very helpful as well. But definitely reach out to us. We actually look at every single startup that shares information with us. This is actually pretty unique to us, probably in some ways compared to other funds, but, partners actually look at every single deal. And that is a very, I think a very great way to get some insights, but use some tools along the way as well. Make sure you're providing or pushing your best foot forward. So for example, you can use a tool called pitchleague.ai and put your pitch deck in, and it'll give you a bunch of feedback with AI right away. And it's a really great tool to just learn like, hey, what can I do better very quickly? Run it by 10 other friends, advisors, get some feedback on what you're doing, or a few potential customers, get some feedback on what you're doing. As much as you can move stuff forward on the customer side, if you have the capabilities internally to build, to start monetizing, start getting indications that things are going in the right direction and people will use this and you have product market fit, it's going to help. So, I mean, those are a few different things, but feel free to reach out at any time and share what you're working on. And, we can also share some other insights into how we see things evolving in the space and how we can help.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this has such a strong social impact as well. So I would really encourage a lot of these founders to reach out if they have something that they're planning, they're working on. The future of blockchain, I do think, is undeniably bright. It's filled with exciting applications waiting to be explored. And if you have one of them, please do reach out to Aly at Blockchain's Founder Fund. The link is in the description. So Aly, I would really like to thank you for joining us today. I know for the past few weeks you've been traveling. You were in Europe, you were in US, you've been in Singapore, and you still managed to take out time. We're really honored to have you on the show, and thanks a lot for this insight on your journey and all the learnings that we took away from this conversation. So thanks a lot, Aly.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much.